My grandfather never once told me to stay away from the woods. That was the first thing I understood to be strange about him, when I was old enough to understand that things could be strange. Every other adult in my life had opinions about the woods. Teachers. The woman at the church in Del Barton who watched me on Sundays when my grandfather drove the long road into town. Even the other children who had grown up on these same ridges and knew the same hollows and should have felt at home in them. Everyone had opinions. Stay on the trail. Don't go past the creek. Don't go up past the second ridge after dark. Don't go alone. My grandfather had none of these opinions. He would watch me go into the trees from the porch of the house, his chair tilted back on two legs, his coffee going cold in his hand. And he would say nothing. He would just watch. And then he would go back to whatever he was reading, or thinking, or doing in that interior way of his that I could never quite reach. I did not understand this until I was 34 years old. I understand it now. My name is Elliot Vance. I am 41 years old. I teach geology at a small college in Morgantown, West Virginia. My grandfather raised me from the age of 6, when my parents died in a car accident on Route 52 in the winter of 1989. He was 61 then. He lived on a ridge in Mingo County that does not have a name on any map I have been able to find. He had lived there for 30 years before I came to him, and he lived there for 23 years after. He died in 2012. And when I went back to the ridge to settle his things, I found what he had left me. Not in a box, not in a letter. On the wall of the back room where I had never been allowed to go as a child, written in pencil, in his handwriting, on the bare plank wall. All of it. Everything I am about to tell you. My grandfather's name was Dillard Vance. He was not a talkative man. He was not a warm man, in the way that word usually gets used. He did not ruffle my hair, or call me buddy, or make a performance of affection. But he was present. That is the word I keep coming back to. Whatever else he was present. He was always where he said he would be. He always did what he said he would do. When I spoke, he listened, not in the way adults usually listen to children, which is mostly waiting for the child to finish, but actually listened and responded to what I had said, and not to what he had expected me to say. I understood as a child that this was unusual. I did not understand why it was unusual. I do now. He had learned it. He had spent 30 years learning to be present, to listen without expecting, to receive what was offered without trying to shape it into something more familiar. He had learned it from something that did not speak. He writes about this on the wall, in the first section, in the careful, measured handwriting of a man who is choosing every word and knows he cannot revise. He writes, "I want to tell you about the country first, because you grew up in it, but you did not know it the way I knew it, and you need to know it the way I knew it, before the rest of this will make any sense. The Appalachians are old. That is the word that matters. Old in a way that the mountains out west are not old. The Rockies are dramatic. They are young and sharp, and they announce themselves. The Appalachians are old. They have been worn down by time until they are round at the top and dark with forest. And the forest is so thick in the hollows and on the north-facing slopes that it holds the dark and past noon. The trees are old too. Some of the hemlock on the back of the ridge behind the house were old when this country was settled. Old when it wasn't yet this country at all. They are enormous and dark, and they have a quality that younger forests do not have, which is depth. You look into them, and there is no end to the looking. It just goes deeper and deeper. And the sounds in those trees, he writes about the sounds, are not like sounds anywhere else. Not louder, not more frightening, just older. Like the mountain is making sounds it has been making for so long that it no longer notices it is making them. He had been listening to those sounds for years before he understood there was something listening back. He came to the ridge in 1959. He was 31 years old. He had worked a decade in the coal mines down in the valley and had come out of the mines with his health intact and his savings modest. And a feeling, he writes, like a man who has been underground for so long that he has forgotten what sky looks like. He did not want to go back underground. He bought the land on the ridge from a family named Combs, who were moving to Cincinnati, and he built the house himself, which took 2 years, and then he lived in it. He trapped in winter. He kept a garden. He cut timber selectively, enough to sell, not enough to damage. He was a man who had thought carefully about what he needed, and found that what he needed was not much, and that not needing much was its own kind of freedom. He did not have neighbors within 3 miles. He was not lonely. He writes, I want to be clear about this because I know how it reads. A man alone on a ridge in Mingo County for 30 years. I know what people will assume. They will assume I was damaged or broken or running from something. Maybe all of those things were true at some point. But by the time the thing I am going to tell you about began, I had been on that ridge for 12 years. And I wasn't lonely, and I wasn't broken, and I wasn't running. I was exactly where I had decided to be. I want you to understand that, because it matters for what comes next. What happened to me did not happen to a desperate man. It happened to a man who was content. And those are different kinds of stories. He first became aware of it in the winter of 1971. Not of something specific, not of a presence he could identify, of a change in the quality of the woods. He had learned the woods the way a careful man learns anything he lives next to for a long time, not all at once, but in increments, each year adding detail to what he knew, until the knowing was deep enough that anomaly registered before thought. In the winter of 1971, there was anomaly. The deer had changed their patterns, not fled, not disturbed in the way they are disturbed by a predator moving through. Changed, as if something had altered the topology of the woods in some way the deer could feel, and they had adjusted to it. The birds were different too, specifically the crows, which had been reliable indicators for him of what was moving where. The crows were not where they should be. They were higher on the ridge than they had any reason to be in February, as if they were giving something room. He walked the woods for 3 days, looking. He found nothing, but he found where something had walked. He writes, the tracks were not clear. It had been hard freeze, and the ground was like iron. And what I found was less a track than a disturbance. A place where the frozen surface had cracked under weight, not once, but in a pattern that suggested something moving on 2 feet. The spacing was wrong for any person. The depth was wrong for any person. I am not a dramatic man. I wrote it in my log as unidentified, and I went home. He wrote it in his log. He did not tell anyone. He went home. He kept his eyes open. The following winter, 1972, He found the first clear track, in soft ground near the creek, where a spring kept the soil from freezing solid. He measured it. He went home and looked through every reference he had, which was not much, but included a hunting almanac and a natural history of West Virginia wildlife that he had owned for 20 years. Nothing matched. He went back to the track. He measured it again. He made a drawing of it in his log, careful to scale. He writes, "I am a practical man. I have never been given to fantasy or to seeing things I want to see. I looked at that track for a long time, and when I was done looking, I said out loud, to no one, what I thought it was. I said the word. I am not going to write the word here because the word is a distraction. The word brings with it a set of associations that will get in the way of what I am trying to tell you. So I will only say, I said the word, and then I went home, and I made supper, and I did not say the word again for 11 years. He kept his eyes open. He did not change his behavior. He did not go armed where he had not gone armed before. He did not stop going into the deep timber. He did not build fences or put up lights or do any of the things a man does when he is afraid of what is in his woods. He was not afraid. He was, he writes, interested. And he was patient enough to let interesting things unfold at their own speed. The first time he saw it, he was 66 years old, 37 years on the ridge, 26 years of paying attention. He had not been looking for it that morning. He had been doing what he always did, walking the east timber before breakfast, checking on a hem he had noticed going soft at the base, keeping notes. He came around the big hemlock at the top of the east slope, and it was there, standing in the narrow clearing on the far side, in the full morning light, as if it had been standing there for some time and was not surprised to see him. He does not describe it at length. He is not that kind of writer. He gives you the dimensions. He gives you the color. He gives you the stillness. He writes, large. Larger than I had estimated from the tracks, and I had estimated large. 7 feet, perhaps more. Dark, almost black, with the light coming from behind me and falling on it directly. It was looking at me. I am certain of that. And what I felt, looking at it, looking at me, was not what I would have predicted. I felt, he writes, recognized. He stood. It stood. He writes, I want to be accurate about the time. I have told this moment to myself many times in the years since, and I have been careful not to let it grow. It was not long, 2 minutes, possibly less. Long enough to see clearly. Long enough to understand that what I was seeing me back, and that the seeing was not hostile. That it was, if I had to put a word to it, curious. And then it turned, and it went up the ridge. The way it moved was not like anything I had seen move. It was not fast, but it covered ground the way water covers ground, without apparent effort, without wasted motion. It went up the ridge and into the dark timber, and I stood in the clearing and watched until there was nothing to watch. He went home. He ate breakfast. He wrote in his log, confirmed. 6:40 a.m. 2 words. Confirmed. 6:40 a.m. That is all. For 3 years after the confirmation, as he calls it. Nothing changed. He walked the woods. He kept his log. He left nothing for it and expected nothing from it. But he began, slowly, to understand that it was there more often than he had previously thought. Not because he saw it again. He did not see it again for a long time. but because he learned to read the signs of its presence the way he read all the other signs of the woods, the pattern of disturbed ground, the places where the deer were not, the particular quality of silence in the deep timber on certain mornings, a silence he eventually learned to distinguish from ordinary quiet. Ordinary quiet was an absence. This was a presence. He began talking. Not to it specifically. He did not know where it was most of the time, and he was not the kind of man who addressed things he could not see. He talked the way some solitary people talk, to the air, to the work in his hands, to the woods in general. He narrated what he was doing. He said the names of things. He writes, "I did not do this consciously at first. It was only later that I understood what I was doing. I was making myself known. Not just my shape, not just my smell and my sound. Those were already known. But my particularity, the specific texture of my mind, what I thought about, what I found interesting, what I found difficult. I was introducing myself. The way you introduce yourself to a neighbor you have lived near for a long time, but never formally met. You let them know what kind of person you are, so they can decide what to do with that information. He did this for 3 years. He talked about the timber and the creek and the deer and the weather. He talked about the mines, which he had not thought about in years. He talked about his wife, who had died in 1965, and who he rarely spoke of to anyone in words. He talked about his son, my father, and about the grandchild he had heard about but not yet met, because my father and he had not been close, and my parents' death was still in the future, and Elliot Vance was still a name he knew, but not yet a person he knew. He talked, and the woods listened. And then one morning in October of 1988, 3 years after the confirmation, he came out to the porch at first light and found a stone on the step. Dark, flat, smooth, the kind that comes from a deep stream bed. He picked it up. He held it for a long time. He writes, "I understood what it was. I knew what it meant in the way you know what a hand extended toward you means, without having to think about it, without having to refer to any prior experience. It meant, I hear you. It meant, I am also a particular thing, and here is evidence of it. It meant, we are doing something here, you and I am willing to continue doing it." I put the stone on the shelf above the fireplace. I said, "Thank you," out loud, to the ridge. And then I went inside and made coffee, and I did not write anything in my log that day. Some things you do not write in logs. My parents died in February of 1989. I was 6 years old. My grandfather drove down from the ridge to identify them, and then he drove back up and he brought me with him. He did not ask anyone's permission. There was no one to ask. My mother had no family to speak of. My father and he had not been close, but he was the only family I had. So he brought me. He writes about this moment with the only real emotion in the entire account. He writes, "I had been alone on that ridge for 30 years. I had not asked for company. I was not a man who needed company. But I drove down to that hospital in a cold February, and I saw that boy sitting in a plastic chair in the hallway outside the room where his parents were. And he looked at me with his father's eyes, and I understood that the calculus had changed. Not reluctantly, not as a burden taken on. I want to be accurate about this. I drove back up that ridge with that child in the passenger seat, and I felt something I had not felt in 30 years, which was that I was going home. and that home now meant something slightly different than it had that morning. That is all I am going to say about that. He brought me to the ridge. He made me a room in the house. He did not change who he was. He taught me the woods the way he knew them, which was to say, he walked them with me and let me ask questions and answered honestly and did not tell me to stay away from anything. I was 6, then 7, then 8 years old. I walked those woods every day, and I never felt alone in them. I thought for a long time that it was just the woods, that woods felt that way, that the quality of presence I felt in the deep timber was something all forests had, and that other children in other places felt it too. I did not know until I read The Wall that what I was feeling had a name, or that the name was not a word, but a particular weight of attention. Patient, ancient, turned toward me. He writes about what he did when I came. He writes, I did not tell it about the boy. I did not know how to tell it something that complex, and I was not certain in those first months what telling it would mean, whether it would change things, whether it should. But I stopped going alone. I started walking the woods with the boy, and I talked the way I always talked, narrating what we were doing, saying the names of things. Except now, I was also narrating him. I said his name often. I described him. I said, this is Elliot. He is my son's son. He is 6 years old. He has never been in woods like these. I said, he is not afraid. I said, he is mine now, and I am responsible for him. I do not know if any of this communicated, but I know that the boy was never afraid in those woods. Not once. In all the years he was there. And I have thought about that a great deal. I started leaving 2 stones on the step instead of 1. When the stone appeared in the morning, there were always 2. 1 for me, 1 for Elliot. He never questioned the stones. Children do not question the things that are simply part of their world. They question the things that change. The stones didn't change. They were just there. Part of the ridge, part of how things were. He writes, I watched the boy grow up in those woods, and I watched him become comfortable in them in a way that I had worked 30 years to become, and he arrived there in 2. I do not know what to make of that. I know only that he was never afraid, and that the things I had been afraid of in the beginning were never present when he was there. Only the patience, only the attention. Like the woods had decided, as I had decided, that the boy was part of the arrangement. Whatever the arrangement was. I have 7 clear memories from that time that I have turned over since reading The Wall, and I want to tell you about them, because I think they are the most important part of this. Not what my grandfather saw, not what my grandfather felt, what I felt as a child, before I had words for any of it. The first memory. I am 7 years old. I'm at the creek, at the wide, flat rock where I like to sit in summer, and I feel very clearly that something is watching me from the hemlocks on the far bank, not frightened, fascinated, the way you feel when something is looking at you, not to assess you, but to understand you. I sat very still, and after a while the feeling changed, became something more like warmth, and I went home for supper. The second memory. I am 9 years old. There is a storm in the night, and in the morning the big maple at the edge of the yard has come down, across the path to the outhouse. My grandfather and I spend the morning cutting it up. At some point in the afternoon, I realize the work is going faster than it should. I look at my grandfather. He's looking at the tree line, not at me, just watching. His expression is the expression he has sometimes in the evening, when he is on the porch and the light is going. Quiet. Pleased. The third memory. I am 11. I have gone up to the back ridge alone, something I've been doing for 2 years with my grandfather's unspoken permission. I find a place near the top of the ridge where the rock comes out bare and flat. I have been there many times, but this time there is something on the rock. 3 stones, laid in a line, 2 dark, like the ones on our step, 1 pale, almost white. I looked at them for a long time. I did not touch them. I do not know why I did not touch them. I just looked, and then I went back down the ridge, and I didn't tell my grandfather. I wish I had told my grandfather. The 4th memory, the 5th, the 6th. I will tell you quickly because the shape of them is the same. A feeling of presence in the deep timber on 3 separate occasions. So strong that I stopped walking and stood very still, and looked and saw nothing, but felt, with complete certainty, that something was looking back. Not threatening, not hungry, not anything I had a word for, just there, just attending. The 7th memory is the one I have carried longest. I am 13 years old. It is October. The leaves are down from the birch and the maple, but the hemlocks are still dark, and the ridge above the house is a wall of dark green against the gray sky. I have gone up the back ridge for the last time before the first snow closes it off. I do this every year, a kind of closing, a last walk before the long interior season. I am at the flat rock near the top. The 3 stones are gone. They went sometime in the summer, and I did not see when. I am sitting on the rock, looking out over the valley. The valley is full of the late light, orange and low, the kind of light that lasts about 20 minutes this time of year, and then is gone. And then I feel it, not behind me, not in the hemlocks, beside me. I do not turn quickly. I have learned in the woods not to turn quickly. I turn slowly, and it is there. At the edge of the rock, in the shadow of the last hemlock, close enough that I can hear it breathing. I cannot describe it adequately. I have tried many times. The size, the dark, the quality of its attention. I was 13 years old. I was not afraid. I have thought since reading The Wall about why I was not afraid. And the best answer I have is this. I had been growing up alongside it for 7 years. And though I had not known that consciously, my body had known it. My body recognized it the way you recognize a place you have been many times, even if you could not, under examination, describe exactly where it was. We sat together on the rock for the length of the late light, 20 minutes, maybe less. I did not speak. I did not move. And then the light was gone, and the valley went gray, and I knew it was time to go back down. I stood. I looked at it. I raised my hand. I do not know why I raised my hand. I had never done it before, and I did not do it consciously. It did not move. I went back down the ridge. I did not tell my grandfather. I wish, with everything I have, that I had told my grandfather. He writes about the years after I left for college. I left in 1999. I was 16. I had tested into the university early, and my grandfather had encouraged this without appearing to encourage it, what was his way. He drove me to Morgantown in his truck and helped me carry my things into the dormitory and shook my hand at the door, which was his version of the embrace other fathers gave their children. I did not know driving away, that I was leaving the ridge for good. I thought I was leaving for a while. Life, and then more life, intervened. I came back for holidays. I came back for a week in the summers, for several years. And then the summers got full, and the holidays got complicated, and the drive was long, and my grandfather did not require me. That was the thing about him. He never required anything. So it was easy, gradually, to come less often. I am ashamed of this. I want to be honest about it. He writes about the years after I left, with the same quiet precision he brings to everything else. He writes, "The boy went away. I had known he would go. I had prepared him to go. The going was right. The ridge was quieter. Not badly so, just quieter. The stones on the step went back to one." He writes, "I am old now. In a way, I wasn't old before. The body takes longer to do what it used to do. The back ridge is a harder walk than it was. But I still walk it. And I still talk, the way I have always talked. And I leave the stone on the step in the morning, and in the evening it is back." He writes, "I have been on this ridge for 50 years. I have been in the presence of something extraordinary for 40 of those years. I have never told anyone. I told the boy by not telling him. I prepared him by walking him into those woods and letting him find what I had found, without naming it, without defining it, without putting any frame around it that might make it smaller than it is. I do not know if that was the right thing to do. I know only that he was never afraid up there, and that in the deep timber, in the October light, something sat beside him on a rock and let him be seen, and that this is not nothing. This is not a small thing. This is, possibly, the largest thing I have to leave him." He writes, "I am writing this on the wall because I do not trust paper. Paper goes away. Paper gets lost and burned and thrown out by people who do not know what they are looking at. The wall will stay. The house will stay as long as I stay. And when I am gone, Elliot will come back, and he will find the back room, and he will read this, and he will understand things he did not know he needed to understand. And maybe he will come back more often. Or maybe he will not. But he will know. That is enough. That is the whole of what I want." I found the back room 3 days after I arrived on the ridge. I had been going through the house methodically, the way you go through a house when someone has died, and you are the only one left to do it. Room by room, box by box, deciding what matters and what doesn't. The back room had always been locked. I do not know why I assumed it was a storage room, probably because he had always been so quiet about it. My grandfather's quiet about things was comprehensive. It covered everything equally, so that you could not tell from the outside what he considered important and what he did not. The key was on a hook in the kitchen. I should have found it sooner. I found it on the 3rd day. And when I went to the back room and put the key in the lock and turned it, I already knew somehow that whatever was in that room wasn't storage. The room was empty. Except for the wall. He had written in pencil, starting at the top left and working across and down in columns, the way you fill a page when you have a great deal to say, and you are not sure how much space you have. It covered the entire north wall. I read it standing up, and then I sat down on the floor, and I read it again, and I understood. The stone on the shelf above the fireplace, the way he had watched me go into the woods without concern. The 13-year-old boy on the flat rock at the top of the back ridge, sitting in the late October light with something enormous and patient and old, and not being afraid. I understood all of it. I also understood something else. The last thing he wrote on the wall, in the bottom right corner, the handwriting smaller because he was running out of space, was not addressed to me. It was dated 3 months before he died. It said, "I am going up the ridge tomorrow, the back ridge all the way to the top. I have not been to the top in 2 years. The knees will not like it. But I want to go once more. I want to sit on the flat rock in whatever light there is. I want to be seen one more time in the place where I have been most seen. I am 79 years old, and I have had a good life, and most of what was good in it happened in these woods. I am grateful. I am not afraid. The family record says he was found in the house. My Aunt Carol found him, the same Aunt Carol who cried the whole way from Anchorage when another family member died. Though this was a different family, a different death, a different aunt. I mean only that someone always drives the long road and cries. He was found in the house, in his chair on the porch, in the morning. The door to the back room was open. His boots were on the mat by the door, with mud still on them. Fresh mud. The dark, rich mud of the back ridge after rain. He had come back from the ridge. He had taken off his boots. He had sat down in his chair. And that was all. I did not go up the back ridge the day I found the room. I went the next morning, early, before the light was full. I walked the trail I had walked 100 times as a child, and the muscles in my legs remembered it before my mind did. I found the flat rock. I sat on it. The valley was below me, gray and quiet in the early light, the leaves mostly down, the ridgeline to the east just beginning to catch the first color of the sun. I sat there for a long time. I did not feel anything I could identify, or rather, I felt everything and could not separate it into parts. Grief and familiarity, and something older than either of those. Something like the feeling I had at 13, sitting on this same rock in the October light. The sense of being attended to. I do not know if that is what it was. I cannot know. I sat until the sun was fully up and the valley had gone from gray to gold. Then I stood. I looked at the hemlock at the edge of the rock. I raised my hand. The hemlock stood in the light. Nothing moved. I went back down the ridge. I've not been back since. I tell myself I will go. Every fall I think about it. October, the back ridge, the flat rock, the late light that lasts 20 minutes, and then is gone. I have not gone. I do not know why I have not gone. Or rather, I know, and I do not want to say it. I am afraid that if I go, I will feel nothing. That the woods will be just woods. That whatever attended me as a child, and attended my grandfather for 50 years, is gone now. Gone with him, or gone on its own, or simply no longer interested in what is left of us. I am afraid of that. More afraid of that than of anything I might find up there. There is a stone on my desk, dark gray, smooth, river-worn. I brought it from the shelf above the fireplace when I cleared the house. I do not know what else is on the flat rock at the top of the back ridge. I do not know what is in the dark hemlock timber on the north face. I do not know what walks the old country at night, or how old it is, or what it makes of the fact that the house on the ridge is empty now, and the light on the porch does not come on anymore, and the man who talked to the woods for 50 years is not there to talk. I do not know any of those things. What I know is this. My grandfather spent 50 years becoming a man who could be present, who could listen without expecting, who could receive what was offered without shaping it into something more familiar. He learned it from something that doesn't speak. And then he walked me into those woods and let me learn it too, without telling me what I was learning, without telling me why. The knowing, I think, was the gift. The not knowing, I think, was also the gift. Both of them, left to me, on a wall in a locked room, on a ridge in Mingo County that does not have a name on any map I've been able to find. I should go back. I know I should go back. The ridge is still there. The hemlocks are still there. The flat rock at the top of the back ridge is still there. And in the deep timber, in the old country, in the dark, that is not empty but full of something that has been attending these mountains since before any of us had names for anything, something is still there too. I think. I hope. I am not sure. And not being sure is its own kind of answer. My grandfather would say that. He would say it quietly, and then he would go back into the woods.